Um, I guess just a couple things by way of introduction. Don said to introduce myself. We're with Sandler Sales Training. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Nadia certainly is. And what I wanted to do today, really more than anything, is do what I can to help you. For a lot of people, this is a really challenging time business-wise. And regardless of that, and having being a member for the chamber for as long as I have and interacted, if you can't sell, you have a hard time having a business. And for a lot of people, doing that is really a struggle, right? You get into the business because of the passion and desire and all that. Then the reality comes is you have to get clients. And so how do you do it? And so for us in Sandler, it's all about process. And if you can learn a process, right, you can follow it, you can repeat it, you can learn to do better at it. And one of the things that people say is that as they learn a process, their confidence and comfort level with selling becomes a lot easier. And so I just want to stress the importance of that today and spend as much time as we can. And I'll share with you a little bit about how we think, okay? Just to give you sort of an option and way to think about it. But as much as we can, if you have very specific questions about selling, about process, about your environment, please, I guess, John and Don, it's via chat. So if you could just post your questions and then I'll do my best to answer them. And then one other thing I'll offer to you. If for whatever reason you have a question and we don't answer it or don't answer it adequately or something comes up, please feel free to give me a call. I know I have my email on there, when we first logged in, but my phone number is 760-456-7066. And I'm happy to spend whatever time to help you through whatever it is you're working on. So
Rob,
like I said,
Rob, what's that phone number again? I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, it's 760-456.
Okay.
7066.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, John. So like I said, and just listening to people do their introductions, a lot of people are sole practitioners, right? But if you do have a business, it's more than just the salespeople, right? So, and I guess the first thing is we think about, you gotta get your head around sales. And so for me, a lot of people, there's the negative connotation goes both ways, right? You think of the awesome, used car salesperson. And if we act like that, we're going to get treated like that. If we act like a typical salesperson that's going to get their own self-interest at heart, right, trying to make a commission, people aren't going to treat us very well, right? And so we want to have to learn how to come across and sell people and move things along, right, but not in quote unquote a salesy way. So I think some of the challenges, and you probably heard a lot of these, people are generally positive and they give you a lot of good feedback and liked everything and you're great. And I think, your services are wonderful. They give you a lot of positive feedback, but at the end of the day, the deal doesn't close, right? An opportunity doesn't come to fruition. And we end up spending a lot of time chasing people. And the reality is it's very challenging. It's very frustrating. So we have this to compare and contrast because, again, the point today is if you don't have a sales process, a selling system, a selling philosophy, you kind of act at the whim of the people that are quote unquote your prospects or buyers or customers. And the way we illustrate it is if you follow their process versus following, ours or somebody else's, this is kind of what it leads to. And so we call it the buyer-seller dance. And the reason we call it the buyer-seller dance, because at the end of the day, right, when you dance and you have a partner, how many people lead? Right? Should be one, right? That's a good, thank you, right? It's one. And so in a selling situation, who is it? And the reality is I mean, who should it be? Technically, it should be us, right? Because who knows more about our services that we offer, right? And how to engage, right? But who wants to be in control, right? The other person, right? The prospect. It's their money, their time, it's their thing. And so there's a tension there. And so we have to learn how to do it. But if you follow the sort of the buyer's process, and yeah, we'll just kind of go back and forth and compare and contrast how the conversation goes. But typically, you people as sellers, you're out networking, you're out chamber events, you're maybe doing cold calls, you're maybe getting web leads, right? You're out there somehow trying to generate some opportunities for yourself, right? So for lack of a better term, we call it, you're out there prospecting, right? You're trying to fill a pipeline. From the prospect's position, when they see you and you're approaching, right? And they perceive you as a salesperson, what do? They put their guard up because you're trying to separate them from their money. And so they don't always tell you the full truth. They don't give you the full picture. Yeah, I'm interested. Send me some information. Get me a quote, right? They're not going to tell you to your face, hey, I don't think I'd like to do business with you. It's always a lot easier to say that. They may say things like money's no object, right? And we know that's not true, right? And we can't accept that, but they do that as a way to kind of protect themselves. Or we like who we're working with, right? So we're out prospecting. Their thing is to maybe not share the full scope of what they're doing, the full truth, if you will. But what is as a amateur salesperson, what do we want to do? We want to get in front of people and tell them what we do. We call it show up and throw up. Tell everybody everything about our product, our services, why we're better, why they should use it, how they're going to benefit, who else has benefited. So we want to present. And for somebody at the other end, the salesperson's a great resource. They'll tell you how to do things, right? It's interesting to me, salespeople, for all the knowledge of their own products and service, competitive offerings out there, what other people are doing, which people would generally pay for, right? That's a lot of knowledge. Salespeople willingly give it away for free, right? We call it unpaid consulting. So they're gathering a lot of interest and asking for more information. Can you answer a few questions? Can you get me a quote? Can you do this? Can you do that? And we have the potential to actually misread those signals as buying intent. So we get excited because they're interested and they're asking us a lot of, right, questions. And so we do all this and we respond. And what's the next step in the process? I've given you the quote, I've given you the information. Now it's time for us to move forward and we start closing, right? We want to get an answer, we want to get a result. And so we start pushing. And what does pushing feel like to a lot of people? It's pressure. And most people don't like pressure. So what do? They start making excuses. They say, hey, let me check with my wife. Let me check with this. I got to check with my business partner. I got to do this. I got to do that. Maybe we'll do this next quarter. And so things under pressure start getting a little bit vague and we get frustrated, right? I put all this energy and effort. You gave me all these positive buying signals and now you're kind of getting cold feet. So what do? Chase. We push even harder. And what do? The term is they go ghost. Right? They disappear. And so for David Sandler, so here you go, right? This is what it looks like. This is what we feel like inside, right? How could this be happening? It's very frustrating. And chase faster is not a process forward, right? It's just, kind of just cranking it up. And so David Sandler was sort of what's the right word? He knew he wasn't a very good salesperson. He knew this. And so he got very frustrated. And so he said to himself, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to be successful at it, I got to have a process. I got to have a way of thinking about it. And so he came up with this Sandler submarine and all the steps. And I'll tell you in just a second why the submarine. But so his training method and what we teach and kind of, I think it's the beauty of this, it's relatively simple, right? Difficult in practice. But the first thing is you have to learn to build a relationship with people. rapport building. And the simplest thing to me is if you can learn to listen. Most salespeople, and forget, or in a sales capacity, feel like they got to share everything. They got to convince and persuade people, right? So they do the talking. And the more I'm talking, the better the meeting's going. And the reality is that's not the case. If you listen to testimonials from people, why did you buy from so-and-so, or why do you use them? It's because they listen. They understand me. They took the time. So the first thing is you have to build relationships with people. And you're unlike the pushy salesperson. So there's a lot to that. The second thing is we have a term now, you could probably speak to this, but it's called upfront contracts. And it's a way for us, a technique for us to control the process with the other person thinking they're controlling the process. And the example I like to use is when our daughter was just a little one growing up. She wanted to dress herself, and she would go to school or to parties or whatever, friend's house, and she had all different kind of crazy outfits. Her shoes were kind of didn't match her pants or shirt, and anyways, just all over the place. And we always had a sort of, hey, sweetheart, you have to wear this. And so one of the things we learned in parenting is how do you deal with a child like that? What does the child want? The child wants control, right? And so the way you deal with that is you say, sweetheart, which outfit you want to wear today? This one or this one? I want that one. She feels like she's in control. Who's really in control? It's us as parents. And so we have to have a similar philosophy in moving deals along. Oops. You've probably heard the term pain before, find the pain. That was a Sandler thing. And that's how do you get people to discover wants and needs. Some they may be aware of, some you may need to help them discover. And we do that best by learning how to ask good questions and diagnose what their situation is. So we try and find the pain. One of the things that salespeople have a very difficult time with sometimes is talking about money. It can be a very awkward subject for people. And the transition to what is this going to cost me makes people uncomfortable. But you got to get money on the table, and you got to give people an idea what it's going to cost. We're just getting our house painted, the exterior, and doing some. We have a wood home, and doing some woodwork. And we've used this painting contractor before. They did the interior of our house, and we really like them. And this particular time, he went through and examined the outside of the house, and said, "I'll get you a quote." Well, when we got the quote back, it was much higher than we ever expected. It was like sticker shock. And so our immediate reaction is, this is too expensive. And so we need to get some other bids. Right? And so we talked to him about it and worked it out. But if he would have brought that up and said, hey, Terry and Rob, order of magnitude, we're looking at this amount of money. This is what it's going to take to do this work, and I just want to get you comfortable. I'll work out all the details. It wouldn't have been a shock, right? And this is setting expectations. So you want to get money on the table early. Whoops. And the last thing is where deals, to me, get really strung out is they don't understand the decision-making process that the person they're working with has. How do they make decisions? Who's involved? When are they going to decide, et cetera? And then the last step for us to begin is fulfillment. And basically, that's how you answer in the mail. This is your presentation or quote. And your presentation or quote, and what's the best close there is? The one you never make, right? Where the person says, hey, this is something I want to do. I'm excited. I want to move forward. Let's go. And so your fulfillment step really is a presentation that deals only with the issues and the concerns and the desires of the person you're dealing with. Then the post sell is basically how do we transition from having an opportunity and having a close to actually delivering it, and make sure there's a smooth transition, make sure they're comfortable, there's no back out, if you will. And that's the post sell. So that's, in a nutshell, that's when we talk about process, that's what we mean, right? That's usually, it's an overlay to what your selling situation is. I know there's a lot of professional services people on the call. You know, you have a process too, right? And how you work people through things, right? And these are elements of that process that you have. Like I said at the beginning, the interesting thing is when you have a process, now you may attest to this, but it makes it a lot easier to go do this kind of work. And work, to me, that's essential in the success of your business. So with that, I'll open it up to questions or comments or feedback.
One thing
So how is your selling, everybody? How are you doing during these times?
Rob, I have a question.
Sure.
So do you suggest having a script that walks you through this process in a conversation with a client? Or do you prefer kind of be flexible and work towards what they want to talk about?
So good question, Ryan. So fundamentally, no conversation goes like a script. They say stuff that, right, in the course of conversation, you need to have a paradigm. You need to have a mental model as to how things, right, should be moving forward. That's how you control things, right? You control it by your questioning and the direction. That said, most people and companies don't have a documented sales process. When I say documented sales process, my first conversation with somebody basically is a discovery conversation. I want to find out a little bit about how are your sales been? Are you growing? Is it consistent across the board? You know, what are you trying to do? Is this something you've budgeted for and thought about, right? And how you're going to pay for it? And that's my initial discovery conversation. And if they meet my criteria, then I say, hey, typically the next step is, it's my upfront contract. Typically the next step is, it's important for us to get comfortable with each other. We'll do a deeper dive to see what your real needs are, go into more depth. And from there, we can structure a program that, we can work around your budget. Does that make sense? And most people, yeah, And by saying, does that make sense? Who feels like they're in control? Right? They do, because they're pulling, right? Yeah, And then they have the opportunity to disagree or edit or whatever the case may be. So Ryan, I don't believe in scripts. I think it's good to write scripts maybe the first few times, but we believe in a conversational sale, right? And it's getting to the root of, right, what people are trying to do and what they'd like to achieve. And so with that though, I think you need the most important thing is to have that documented sales process. And most people don't, they say, I don't know where to start. Right, how do you do it? And the best way to do it is think about some opportunities you closed or some deals you won, and what was the sequence of events? Who was involved? What was the conversation about? Right? And put a stake in the ground, say, this is what I think it is. People are continually refining their processes. Right? Okay.
Hey, Rob?
Yeah.
It seems to me without a script, I actually have a script, but after practicing it quite a bit, it just comes down to just points. But it seems to make sense to actually practice with another, whether that's somebody in your sales office or with another. Would you agree with that?
We just, in our mastery class yesterday, we just had a conversation about it, and the topic was money, right, and budget, and how do you deal with it, right? And for a lot of people, it's a difficult subject. So one of the people, what they do is they go to a car lot, and they talk to salespeople there about cars, and they talk and see how they handle money, and how the transition and right, and how they do it. And it really struck me because if you get good at it, it just flows naturally, right? And so you got to find places to practice, John, right? And you got to find people to practice with. I'm a big believer in rehearsing beforehand. What questions are they going to ask? How am I going to answer them? What things don't I want them to ask that make me uncomfortable? Right? I think it's interesting. We spend a lot of time and money on getting leads, whether it's right belonging to networking events and going out to things or buying leads or right whatever advertising, and we don't spend 5 minutes prepping for a call.
Yeah,
You know, the
I
bonding
just,
report. You know, what do you know about this person and their company? Did you take a little extra time to look at their LinkedIn profile?
yeah, one thing I saw on your presentation right at the top is rapport, which I am huge on. I really like it a lot. And, you know, with working with Janie, it's the same thing. She basically says, well, she could repeat it probably, but, you know, basically put all your time and energy up front to develop a relationship and everything else will go smoothly.
Mm-hmm. It's a big part of it.
So a
And my
lot of
only,
it, would you say a lot of it in the process is like, rather than just like one call scheduling with one person, you're going to have some calls or some interactions that are just about, hey, how you doing with the family and this COVID and all the rest of it, whatever.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly a relationship. You know, it's funny. I just through this whole thing, and the clients I work with, you know, what are we going to do, right? And some people don't want to sell during this period of time because people are preoccupied with other things, right?
Yeah.
Which is a mindset thing.
Say,
And
if you don't mind, Susan, I know that you're really awesome and a huge promoter and doing sales for Epic, I know, in terms of magazine. What do you find to be the greatest challenge that Rob might be able to give some insight into, if I may be so bold?
Uh, you put me on the spot this morning.
Yes, I did.
I believe that he is exactly right in the building rapport portion of it, because they see you as a salesperson and they put their, you know, guards up. But building that rapport, understanding what their needs are and addressing them and finding the best way to support them, even if it's not through you, you know, they'll think of you in return. So that's what I believe. I don't know if it's right.
You guys, can I chime in real quick?
Sure.
Just wanted to mention that I totally agree about rapport, but one thing that I learned from Rob, thank you, Rob, I learned that probably 90% of what I was dealing with that was hindering me from growing my business was really ingrained in me. Like a lot of it, like how I was raised and how I thought about money. And when I got to that budget step, you know, and how I couldn't really deal with the conversation effectively, I could have the best rapport. I had the know, like, and trust figured out with 90% of my prospects probably, but I couldn't get past the budget step and realizing like what was ingrained in me to when it came to talking about money. So that's what I felt was the biggest benefit of taking a sales training class, is understanding how much of it is what's inside of us and being able to practice with people to overcome that. Because you can have a lot of rapport, but not, you know, be able to grow your business.
Say, Rob, there's also a question here from somebody that says, I'd like to hear what Rob has to say about selling during this time when people are distracted with COVID, etc.
so it's interesting because like I was starting to say that they're afraid to call now, right? Because they have other things, right? So what are your options? Well, maybe I'll call and check in on. I'll be empathetic, right? I'll listen, right? Because people just want to talk, right? Without being a salesperson, without having any intention. And I thought to myself, shouldn't we be doing that anyway? Shouldn't we be doing that anyway? The second thing that's relationships. The second thing is maybe there's other ways, Susan, as you wanted to help people. A good salesperson, their mindset is, I want to help you. How do I help? What can I do? Right? Sort of a problem solver, if you will. And the third thing is what I've learned is that what's your game plan when you come out of this? when you talk to people? When this thing sort of goes away or whatever, things morph, what's your vision, what your company is going to look like? Most people want to talk about that. And they want to think through it. They're trying to think through it. And what does that do for you as a salesperson? And not only you, but maybe there's ways that you can help them coming out the other end. And these are conversations you should have with people one way or the other periodically, right? You have existing clients, right? What's your game plan? You know, we've worked together for a course of a year. I know your business has changed, economy's changing. Kind of where do you see things going? Right? What do you want to do? Maybe I can help you, maybe I can't. Right? At least spend the time to help you think it through. So I don't know if that helps, John, but that's the kind of the mindset and sort of approach that you can use during these times.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
You know, maybe just chiming in on that, Rob, I had an experience yesterday with a prospect that very much fits into that situation. So part of my business, I run a CEO peer group that meets once a month, right? And I had a prospect, and part of the process is, you know, once we go through the preliminary stuff, it's for them to attend a meeting, you know, as to just check it out, see if they fit with the other members of the group, see if the topics discussed are the kinds of things that they want help with, etc. So I had a prospect that was going to come to our meeting in March. And then he emailed me, I had a little scratchy throat. I decided I better stay home, right? I'm like, good, okay, stay home for sure. All right, and then in April and May, we met virtually. So I talked to him and said, you know, it's probably not the best way to experience the group, you know, in a virtual meeting. So we kind of agreed that we would wait till we were meeting again in person. And then last month's meeting was very productive with all the members. So I emailed them this week and said, we're meeting next week. You know, originally I was thinking meeting virtually wasn't going to be the best experience, but last month's meeting kind of changed my mind. What do you think? Do you want to check it out virtually this month, or do you want to wait till we're meeting? So I went with the, you know, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And he came back with, no, I'd like to attend the virtual meeting next week. So I'm like, and that was like, wow, that's great. Okay, I'm one step closer.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
Any other questions?